Imagine a small boy sitting alone in a dark room. The house is quiet. Outside, the streets of Pretoria, South Africa, are hot and dusty. The boy is not playing. He is not watching television. He is reading. He is always reading. This boy reads every book he can find. He reads encyclopedias. He reads science books. He reads fantasy novels. He reads anything and everything. His friends do not understand him. His family sometimes worries about him, but the boy does not care. He is lost in his books. He is building a world inside his mind. One day, he finishes reading every book in his school library. He asks his teacher for more books. His teacher laughs, not in a cruel way, but in surprise, because no child had ever done that before. This boy's name is Elon Musk. And this is the story of how a lonely, bookish boy from South Africa changed the entire world. Elon Reeve Musk was born on June 28, 1971, in Pretoria, South Africa. His father, Elon Musk, was an engineer. His mother, Mai Musk, was a model and a nutritionist. From the outside, his family looked successful. They had a big house. They had money. They had everything a child could want. But inside that house, things were not always happy. Elon's parents had a difficult relationship. There was tension at home. There were arguments. And when Elon was just 10 years old, his parents divorced. This was very painful for young Elon. He did not know what to do with the pain, so he did what he always did. He picked up a book. He went inside his own world. He kept thinking. He kept dreaming. But the pain did not go away easily. Elon made a decision that surprised everyone. He chose to live with his father. Most of his siblings chose to live with their mother. But Elon felt his father was lonely. He felt responsible. He thought, I cannot leave him alone. It was a kind decision, but it came with a cost. Life with his father was difficult. Elon Musk was a complicated man. He could be kind, but he could also be harsh. He could be cold. Living with him was not always easy for a sensitive, quiet child like Elon. Elon learned early that life does not always give you what you want. You have to survive. You have to keep going. No matter how hard things get. At school, life was no easier. Elon was different. He was quiet. He was very smart. But being smart in school does not always make you popular. Sometimes it makes you a target. Elon was bullied. Not just a little. He was bullied badly. One day, a group of boys grabbed Elon. They pushed him down a flight of stairs. He fell hard. He was badly hurt. He was taken to the hospital. His face was swollen. His nose was broken. He lay in that hospital bed, alone and in pain. He was just 12 years old. Most children would have cried. Most children would have begged their parents to help them. Elon did cry. Of course he did. He was a child. But he also made a decision in that hospital bed. He decided he would not be weak forever. He decided he would get stronger. He started learning how to defend himself. He started practicing martial arts. He grew taller. He grew tougher. Eventually, the bullying stopped. But something more important happened. Elon learned a lesson that would stay with him for the rest of his life. He learned that pain is temporary. He learned that the mind is more powerful than the body. He learned that if you refuse to give up, things will change. He learned to face his fears instead of running from them. By the time Elon was 12 years old, he had already taught himself how to code. He bought a simple Commodore computer. He read the manual. He practiced every day. He wrote a simple video game called Blastar. It was a basic space game, but it was impressive for a 12-year-old with no teacher. He sold the code for that game to a computer magazine. He earned $500. $500. At 12 years old, most boys would spend that money on toys or clothes. Elon put it aside. He was already thinking differently from everyone around him. He was not just a smart boy. He was a boy who could turn his ideas into things. Real things. Things that other people could use. That is a rare quality, and it would define everything that came next. When Elon was 17 years old, he decided to leave South Africa. He had a dream. He wanted to go to America. He believed America was the place where big dreams could come true. He had read about inventors. He had read about Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, and Henry Ford. He wanted to be like them. He believed that if he could get to the right place, he could do something great. But leaving was not easy. His father did not want him to go. There were visa problems. There were money problems. South Africa also had a mandatory military service requirement for young men. Elon did not want to spend years in the military. He wanted to build things, not carry a gun, so he made a bold move. He found out that he had Canadian citizenship through his mother. He applied for a Canadian passport. It took a long time, but finally it came. At 17, Elon Musk packed a single backpack. He said goodbye to his home. He got on a plane. He flew to Canada, alone. He had very little money. He had no job waiting for him. He had no family to meet him at the airport. He had only his dreams and his determination. Most people would call this crazy. Elon called it necessary. Life in Canada was hard, very hard. Elon arrived with almost nothing. He worked at a farm cutting logs. He worked at a lumber mill. He cleaned out the boiler room of a steam plant. The work was dirty, hot, and exhausting. He earned very little money. He ate cheap food. He slept in small, uncomfortable places. But he never complained, at least not for long. Every hard job he did, he thought of it as training. He thought, if I can do this, I can do anything. He called his cousin. His cousin lived in Canada. Slowly, Elon built a small network of contacts. He worked hard every day. He saved every dollar. And then the next step came. He got accepted into Queen's University in Canada. He studied there for 2 years. He was excellent in his classes. People noticed him. He was smart, but more than smart. He was curious. He asked deep questions. He challenged ideas. He eventually transferred to the University of Pennsylvania in the United States. This was his dream, America. At Penn, he studied economics and physics, 2 very different subjects. But Elon wanted to understand both the world of business and the world of science. He knew that the future would be built by people who understood both. He graduated with 2 degrees, one in economics, one in physics. He was 24 years old, and his real journey was just beginning. After Penn, Elon was accepted into a PhD program at Stanford University in California. Stanford is one of the greatest universities in the world. A PhD from Stanford would open every door imaginable, but Elon only attended Stanford for 2 days. 2 days. Then he quit, not because it was too hard, not because he was failing, but because something was happening in the world. Something big. Something that Elon could feel in his bones. The internet was coming. It was 1995. The internet was just beginning to grow. Most people did not understand it yet. Most people thought it was just a toy, a passing trend. But Elon saw what it would become. He saw that the internet would change everything. He saw that there was a window open, and he knew that windows do not stay open forever. He called his brother Kimball. He said, "I think we need to start a company right now." Kimball said, "What kind of company?" Elon said, "I am not sure yet, but I know it has to be internet-based. I know it has to be now." Kimball trusted his brother. He had always trusted his brother. He said, "Okay, let us do it." Their mother, Mai, heard about the plan. She was worried. She said, "Elon, you have a PhD program at Stanford. Are you sure you want to give that up?" Elon said, "Mom, I can always go back to school. But this moment in time only happens once." May looked at her son. She saw the fire in his eyes. She had seen that fire since he was a baby. She could not argue with it. She said, "Okay, But please be careful. He was not careful, but he was right. Elon and Kimball started a company called Zip2. It was a simple idea. They created an online city guide. Newspapers could use it to provide maps and business directories to their readers. It sounds simple now, but in 1995, it was new. It was needed. The early days were incredibly difficult. Elon and Kimball rented a tiny office. They could not afford an apartment, so they slept in the office. They showered at the local YMCA. They shared a single computer. During the day, Elon would use the computer to code. He would code for 12 to 16 hours a day. At night, the computer became their server. It had to stay on all night to run the website. They ate very cheap food. They had almost no money, but they kept going. Elon worked with a ferocious intensity. He was not just trying hard. He was trying with everything he had. He pushed through tiredness. He pushed through doubt. He pushed through fear. People who worked with him during that time said that Elon had a way of working that was almost inhuman. He could focus completely. He could block out everything except the task in front of him. He was building something, and nothing was going to stop him. They found investors. The company grew. Newspapers began signing contracts. Things started moving, but it was not smooth. Investors came in and changed things. Some investors pushed Elon out of leadership positions. They did not think he was the right person to run the company. This was painful. He had built this thing from nothing, and now other people were taking control. He felt angry. He felt hurt, but he watched. He learned. He stored the lessons away in his mind. In 1999, Compaq, a huge computer company, bought Zip2 for $307 million. Elon's share was $22 million. He was 27 years old. He was a millionaire, a very rich millionaire. Most people would stop there. Most people would buy a big house, a fast car, and relax on a beach somewhere. Elon did buy a sports car. It was a McLaren F1. He paid about $1 million for it. He drove it one day. He crashed it. The car was destroyed. There was no insurance. He stood looking at the broken car. Someone asked him if he was devastated. He said, "Things happen. Just things happen." And then he kept going. With his money, Elon started a new company. This one was more ambitious. He saw that the banking and financial system was old, slow, and complicated. He believed the internet could change banking forever. He started a company called X.com. X.com allowed people to send money over the internet using email. This was revolutionary. In 1999, nobody was doing this. People still sent checks in the mail. People still stood in long bank lines. Elon was solving a real problem. He was making something that millions of people would need. But building a financial company is not like building a website. There were regulations. There were complicated legal requirements. There were banks who did not want to be disrupted. There were powerful people who did not like what Elon was doing. But he pushed forward. X.com merged with another company called Confinity. Confinity had a service called PayPal. The two teams did not always get along. There were arguments about direction. There were disagreements about technology. At one point, while Elon was traveling, the board voted to remove him as CEO. He found out mid-flight. He was on a plane when someone told him he had been replaced. He had been voted out of his own company. Again, this time, it hurt even more. He had poured everything into this company. He believed in it completely, and they had removed him while he was sitting on a plane. He landed. He felt the pain. He let himself feel it, and then he got back to work. Even though he was no longer CEO, he remained a major shareholder. He stayed involved. He continued to push for the company to succeed. In 2002, eBay bought PayPal for $5 billion. Elon's share was $165 million. He was 30 years old. He had over $180 million total. And he was about to do something that everyone thought was completely insane. Elon Musk sat in his home one evening. He was thinking. He was always thinking. He thought about the future. He thought about where humanity was going. He thought about the problems of the world. He thought about one thing most of all. Space. For centuries, humans had looked up at the stars and dreamed. We had gone to the moon in 1969. It was one of the greatest achievements in human history. But since then, nothing. We had gone backwards. The world had lost its excitement for space. NASA's budget had been cut again and again. Elon thought about something that terrified him. What if something happened to Earth? What if there was a disaster? What if humans had no backup plan? What if everything we had ever built, everything we had ever loved, was wiped out because we had only one home? He thought. We need to be a multi-planetary species. We need to go to Mars. He looked up how much rockets cost. He was shocked. A single rocket cost hundreds of millions of dollars. That is why nobody was building new rockets. That is why space had been left to governments with massive budgets. But Elon thought differently. He thought, what if someone could build rockets more cheaply? What if the cost could be reduced by 90%? What would that make possible? He called experts. He read textbooks. He talked to rocket scientists. He absorbed everything he could learn about aerospace engineering. People told him he was crazy. People told him rockets were too expensive, too complicated, and too dangerous for a private company. People told him he would lose all his money and fail embarrassingly. He listened to them. He thanked them for their advice. Then he started a company called SpaceX. Starting SpaceX was one of the hardest things Elon had ever done. And Elon Musk had done many hard things. He hired brilliant engineers. He told them his vision. Some were excited. Some thought he was crazy but decided to join anyway, because crazy ideas sometimes become reality. They worked on building a rocket, a real rocket, a rocket that could reach orbit. They called it Falcon 1. The early days were chaos. Building a rocket from scratch is extraordinarily difficult. Every single part has to work perfectly. Every calculation has to be right. The tolerances are almost impossibly small. One mistake, one wrong number, one loose bolt, and everything explodes. They had failure after failure in early testing. Parts broke. Systems failed. Engineers were frustrated. The team worked impossibly long hours. People came home exhausted every night. Some could not handle the pressure and left. But Elon stayed. He pushed harder. He learned more. He became not just the founder and CEO, but a deeply involved engineer. He did not just manage people. He understood the technical details. He could walk into a room full of rocket engineers and argue with them about propulsion physics. People who worked for him said it was both inspiring and terrifying. Inspiring because his commitment was total. Terrifying because his standards were impossibly high. Finally, they were ready to launch. The first Falcon 1 rocket stood on the launch pad on a small island in the Pacific Ocean called Omelek Island. The team counted down. The engines fired. The rocket rose. And then it crashed back down. It exploded. It was destroyed. The team was heartbroken. They had worked for years. They had poured everything into this moment, and it had failed in seconds. Elon walked out to address his team. His eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. He said, "I know this is hard. This is crushing. But we are not going to give up. We are going to fix what went wrong. We are going to go back out there, and we are going to succeed." He paused. He looked at the faces of his team. He said, "I will never give up, and I am asking you not to give up either." Most of them stayed. They fixed the problems. They launched again. The second rocket failed too. They fixed more problems. They launched a third time. The third rocket also failed. By this point, SpaceX was almost out of money. Elon had put his entire fortune from PayPal into SpaceX and another company he was running. He had almost nothing left. His friends were worried about him. His family was worried about him. He was personally in debt. He could not pay his rent in some months. He borrowed money from friends just to get by. People who knew him said he looked exhausted. He had lost weight. He sometimes slept at his office on the floor. He was under more stress than almost any human being could bear. A reporter asked him once how he felt during this period. Elon was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I never thought I would have to eat my own heart, but I ate it." Those words say everything. He was suffering deeply. He was not pretending it was easy. He was telling the truth. It was the hardest time of his life, but he kept going. In 2008, they launched Falcon 1 for the fourth time. The team gathered around their screens. Some of them could barely watch. They had been through so much failure. Some of them had given up hope. They were just going through the motions. The countdown began. The engines fired. The rocket lifted off. It climbed. It kept climbing. The team held their breath. Stage 1 separated perfectly. Stage 2 ignited. The rocket kept going and going and going. It reached orbit. The room exploded. People were crying. People were hugging each other. People were jumping up and down. Some people could not stand. They fell to their knees. They were overwhelmed. Elon stood there, and he was crying too. He was crying so hard he could barely speak. He had done it. With a small team, with almost no money, with everyone in the world telling him it was impossible. He had done what nobody thought a private company could do. Falcon 1 became the first privately developed, liquid-fueled rocket to reach orbit. A door had opened, not just for SpaceX, for all of humanity. That same year, 2008, was also one of the most painful years of Elon's personal life. He and his first wife, Justine, divorced after a deeply difficult marriage. They had gone through tremendous pain together, including the loss of their first son, Nevada, who died just 10 weeks after birth from sudden infant death syndrome. That loss was something no parent should ever have to face. Elon rarely spoke about it publicly, but those who were close to him said the grief never really left. It simply went underground. It became fuel. It became purpose. His marriage ended. His finances were shattered. His rocket company and his car company were both on the edge of bankruptcy. Yes, his car company. Because while all of this was happening, Elon had also started another company, an electric car company, a company called Tesla. Electric cars were not a new idea, but nobody had made them desirable. Nobody had made them cool. Electric cars were slow, ugly, and expensive to build. The established car companies said they were not practical. They said nobody wanted them. Elon disagreed. He had co-founded Tesla in 2003, alongside Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. He invested heavily. He became chairman of the board. Eventually, he became CEO. Tesla's mission was not just to make electric cars. It was to prove that electric could be better. Better than gasoline. Better looking, faster, more exciting. But building cars is even harder than building rockets. The automobile industry is one of the most complex industries in the world. Every major car company that tried to start a new brand had failed. The history of automobile companies is a graveyard of failed attempts. Tesla's first car was called the Roadster. It was a beautiful sports car. It could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 4 seconds. It proved that electric could be exciting. But making it was a nightmare. Parts did not fit. Suppliers delivered wrong components. Costs exploded. The company was burning through money at a terrifying speed. And in 2008, when the global financial crisis hit, things became truly desperate. Tesla needed money to survive. SpaceX needed money to survive. Elon needed money to survive. But the world was in the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. Nobody wanted to invest. Banks were collapsing. Businesses were closing everywhere. Elon made a painful choice. He took his last remaining personal money, around $40 million, and split it between SpaceX and Tesla. He put everything he had into keeping them alive. He said later that he calculated the odds of both companies surviving. He thought Tesla had about a 10% chance. SpaceX had maybe a 20% chance. He did it anyway. I just knew that I had to try, he said. Even if the odds were against me, even if I failed, I could not live with myself if I did not try. He borrowed money from friends to pay his personal bills. He was one of the richest men in the world on paper, but he literally could not afford to pay his own rent some months. His second wife at the time, actress Tallulah Riley, talked about this period. She said Elon was in physical and emotional agony. He had stress attacks. He could barely sleep. But every morning, he got up and went back to work. He once sat in a restaurant with a friend, talking about the pressure he was under. He started crying, not quietly, deeply. His shoulders shook. He had been holding so much for so long. His friend put a hand on his shoulder and said, "It is okay. You have done enough. Nobody will blame you if you let go." Elon wiped his eyes. He took a breath. He said, "I cannot let go. Too many people are counting on me." He went back to work the next day. At the end of 2008, on Christmas Eve, SpaceX received a $1.6 billion contract from NASA. On that same day, Tesla received a critical investment that saved the company. Both companies survived. Both companies would go on to change the world. But in that moment, Elon did not celebrate loudly. He sat quietly. He let the relief wash over him. He thought of all the people who had believed in him. He thought of all the engineers and workers who had stayed through the darkness. He said later, "I never want to go through that again, but I would do it again if I had to. Because some things are worth fighting for, no matter what it costs you." The years that followed were a slow but incredible rise. Tesla introduced the Model S in 2012. It was not just an electric car. It was one of the most advanced cars ever built. It won awards. It received perfect safety ratings. Car experts said it was the best car they had ever driven. People who had laughed at electric cars stopped laughing. Tesla became a symbol that the future was possible, a symbol that clean energy was not just a dream, a symbol that hard work, vision, and absolute refusal to quit could change industries that had been the same for 100 years. SpaceX also grew into something astonishing. They developed new rockets. The Falcon 9 rocket became the most reliable rocket in the world. And then they did something nobody had ever done before. They landed rockets back on Earth. After they launched, they flew back. They landed vertically, perfectly. On a small platform in the middle of the ocean, the world watched in disbelief. Even rocket scientists who had spent their careers telling everyone that landing rockets was impractical watched with open mouths. Elon's dream was always to make rockets reusable. A rocket that can land and be launched again is like an airplane. Instead of throwing away the entire rocket after each launch, you use it again. This cuts the cost of reaching space from hundreds of millions to a fraction of that amount. It was revolutionary. It was transformational. It was exactly what he had always believed was possible, and he proved it. People began to take notice of Elon Musk in a way they never had before, not just as a businessman, not just as an inventor, but as something rarer, as a visionary, as someone who could see the future and then make it real. He appeared in magazines. He appeared on television. He gave speeches. He talked about Mars. He talked about sustainable energy. He talked about the future of the human race. Some people loved him. Some people thought he talked too big. Some people were skeptical. But everybody was listening. Elon did not care too much about popularity. He cared about results. He expanded Tesla's line of cars. The Model X, the Model 3, the Model Y. Each one more affordable than the last. Each one bringing the electric car revolution closer to everyday people. He started a company called Solar City, which installed solar panels on homes. He believed that the sun could power the whole world. He believed that oil and gas were relics of the past. He started a company called The Boring Company, which aimed to build underground tunnels to solve city traffic problems. He started a company called Neuralink, which works on connecting the human brain directly to computers. He became involved with a company called OpenAI, which worked on artificial intelligence. His mind never stopped. His ambition never shrank. But with success came new kinds of difficulty. Running multiple companies at the same time is something very few people have ever done. And doing it at the level Elon was doing it was almost beyond comprehension. He worked from early morning until late at night. He moved between companies. He attended meetings, reviewed engineering specs, approved designs, solved problems, managed people, and made hundreds of decisions every single day. His personal life suffered. He had 5 sons with his first wife, Justine. He had 2 boys with his second wife, Tallulah Riley. He had more children with other partners in later years. He tried to be a present father, but his work consumed most of his time. He spoke honestly about this struggle. He said, "Being a good father and running these companies is the hardest balancing act I have ever faced. I do not always get it right. I know I have not always been there the way I should have been." He was not perfect. He never claimed to be. But the honesty was refreshing. In a world full of people pretending to be perfect, Elon Musk admitted his failures with a directness that people respected. In 2021, Elon Musk became the richest person in the world. His net worth crossed $300 billion. It was a number so large it was almost impossible to understand. But Elon himself seemed unmoved by it. He said money was just a resource. It was fuel for his mission. He did not want a yacht. He did not want 10 mansions. He said he wanted to die on Mars. Not in a sad way, in an adventurous way. He wanted to go there himself. He wanted to be part of humanity's next great step. He sold most of his physical possessions. He sold his houses. He said he did not need them. He simplified his life. He wanted to stay focused on what mattered. People could not understand this. Here was the richest man in the world, living in a small rented house near his SpaceX factory. No swimming pool, no grand estate. Just a man who cared more about rockets than real estate. Loathe him or criticize him, you could not deny his commitment. It was absolute. It was total. It was unlike anything the world had seen in a long time. SpaceX continued to push further. In 2020, they launched American astronauts to the International Space Station. This was the first time a private company had sent humans to orbit. NASA had paid Russia to take American astronauts to the space station for years. Now, SpaceX changed that. America had its own human spaceflight capability again, but this time through a private company. Elon stood on the launch pad, watching his rocket carry human beings to space. He had first dreamed of this moment 20 years ago, in a tiny office with no shower, eating cheap food, sleeping on the floor. He stood there and cried. He cried for a long time. His mother, Mai, was there. She put her hand on his arm. She said, I am so proud of you." He could not speak. He just held her hand. But the world was never done testing Elon Musk. In 2022, Elon made one of his most controversial decisions. He decided to buy Twitter, one of the world's most powerful social media platforms. He paid $44 billion for it. The reaction was explosive. Some people cheered. Others were furious. Critics said he was reckless. Supporters said he was brave. The debate went on for months. Elon went into Twitter and immediately made dramatic changes. He fired many employees. He changed policies. He made the platform very different from what it had been. Some people left Twitter. Others came back. Advertisers argued with him publicly. Employees complained. Governments around the world had opinions. Elon did not back down. He never backed down. He said he believed in free speech. He believed that public conversation needed a place where ideas could be debated openly. Was he right? Was he wrong? The debate continues. The world is watching. As always, but this much was clear. Whatever Elon Musk decided to do, he did it all the way. He did not do things halfway. He did not dip his toe in the water. He jumped into the deep end every single time. Let us step back now. Let us look at the whole picture. A boy who was bullied. A boy who had no friends. A boy who was beaten up and sent to the hospital. A boy who came from a broken home and carried pain inside him that never fully healed. That boy left his country with a backpack and almost no money. He worked on farms and in boiler rooms. He slept in an office because he could not afford an apartment. He ate rice and cheap food and kept coding through the nights. He was pushed out of companies he built. He nearly went bankrupt not once but twice. He watched his rockets explode. He went through painful divorces. He lost a baby son. He worked so hard he made himself physically sick. And through all of it, he kept going. He kept building. He kept dreaming. Today, Tesla has made electric vehicles mainstream around the world. Because of Tesla, every major car company now makes electric cars. The conversation about transportation has changed forever. Today, SpaceX launches more rockets than any other organization on Earth. It costs less to reach orbit than it ever has in human history. Astronauts fly to space on SpaceX rockets. The company is actively building a rocket called Starship that is designed to carry people to Mars, the red planet, the place Elon has dreamed about since he was a child reading science books in a library in Pretoria. Solar energy is growing faster than anyone predicted. The shift away from fossil fuels is accelerating. Satellite internet is connecting people in remote corners of the world who never had internet access before. The world is different because of this man. What made Elon Musk different? This is the question people always ask. Was it intelligence? Yes, he was very intelligent. But the world is full of intelligent people who never change anything. Was it money? He made money early, yes. But he bet it all and nearly lost it all, more than once. Was it luck? There was some luck. There always is. But luck does not explain the decades of 16-hour days. Luck does not explain sleeping on an office floor. Luck does not explain getting back up after 3 rocket failures. What made Elon different was something that is harder to measure, something more essential. It was the combination of a huge dream and an absolute refusal to quit. Most people have one or the other. Either they have big dreams but give up when things get hard, or they work incredibly hard but aim too small. Elon had both. He dreamed the biggest dreams imaginable, and he worked with an intensity that burned like a star. He was also willing to be wrong. He was willing to look foolish. He was willing to fail in public, over and over again, because he cared more about the mission than about his own pride. He once said something that has stayed with people for years. He said, The first step is to establish that something is possible. Then, probability will occur. What a beautiful idea! You start by deciding something is possible. You commit to that belief. And then, because you believe it, you find the way to make it real. There is one more story to tell. A quiet story. Not a story about rockets or billions of dollars. A human story. A few years ago, Elon Musk spoke publicly about something very personal. He talked about being autistic. He was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. This is a form of autism. He talked about how he had always thought differently from other people, how he struggled to understand social cues, how he sometimes said things that upset people without meaning to, how he found human interaction difficult and draining, while machines and ideas felt natural and easy. He said, "I did not always know how to connect with people. I still do not, sometimes. But I learned that you do not have to be perfect at everything. You just have to be really good at the things that matter." This confession moved millions of people around the world. Millions of people who felt different. Millions of children who felt like they did not belong. Millions of adults who had struggled their whole lives to fit in. They heard Elon Musk, the most successful entrepreneur on earth, say, "I am different too, and it is okay." It was maybe the most important thing he ever said. We are coming to the end of this story now. But before we do, let us take one final moment to imagine something. Imagine that small boy again, sitting alone in a dark room, reading books, dreaming about stars, about rockets, about a planet called Mars. That boy was laughed at. That boy was beaten up. That boy was told he was weird. That boy was pushed to the edge, again and again, throughout his entire life. And that boy changed the world. If you are someone who feels alone right now, hear this. The people who feel alone often feel alone because they think differently. And the people who think differently are often the ones who change things. If you are someone who has failed, hear this. Elon's first 3 rockets exploded. He failed at PayPal. He failed at Tesla early on. He failed in his marriages. He failed in many ways. And look what he built. If you are someone who has been told that your dreams are too big, hear this. They told Elon his dreams were too big. They told him landing rockets was impossible. They told him electric cars would never catch on. They told him private space travel was a fantasy. He did not argue with them. He just kept working. There is a quote that Elon says he has lived by his entire life. It comes from his years of reading and thinking. He says the lesson of his life is this. If something is important enough, you should try, even if the probable outcome is failure. Read that again slowly. Even if the probable outcome is failure. He is not saying you will always succeed. He is not promising a happy ending. He is saying something harder and more true. He is saying that some things matter so much that the trying itself is worth it. That the effort itself has value, regardless of outcome. He is saying that the person who tries and fails is living more fully than the person who never tries at all. Elon Musk is not a perfect man. He would be the first to tell you that. He has made mistakes. He has hurt people. He has said things he should not have said. He has made decisions that others question. But perfection was never the point. The point was the mission. The point was moving forward. The point was not stopping. And in a world that often tells us to be careful, to be safe, to stay in our lane, to not reach too high, to be realistic, to manage our expectations, there is something deeply powerful about a person who says, "No, I will reach for the stars." Literally. Elon Musk reached for the stars, and he is still reaching. Somewhere right now, at this very moment, a SpaceX rocket is being built. Engineers are working through the night. Welders are welding. Programmers are coding. People from around the world are working together because one boy from South Africa once looked up at the night sky and thought, "We have to go there." Somewhere right now, a Tesla car is being driven on a quiet road. It makes no noise. It produces no exhaust. It is clean and fast and beautiful. And inside it, a driver is thinking, "This is the future," because of one man who believed it was possible when nobody else did. The story of Elon Musk is not just a story about one person. It is a story about what is possible when a human being refuses to live inside the limits that the world tries to place on them. It is a story about reading books in a quiet room and letting those books change your mind about what the world could be. It is a story about getting back up after being knocked down, not once, not twice, but so many times that most people would have stopped counting. It is a story about choosing the harder path, the riskier path, the path that everyone says leads nowhere, and arriving at a place that nobody else had ever reached. You may not want to build rockets. You may not want to go to Mars. You may not want to be the richest person in the world or run 5 companies at once. But whatever your dream is, this story is for you. Your dream matters. Your ambition is valid. Your vision of a better life, a better world, a better version of yourself, that vision is worth fighting for. Do not let the world tell you it is too big. Do not let fear make you small. Do not let failure convince you to stop. Think of that boy in the library. Think of those exploding rockets. Think of sleeping on an office floor and eating cheap food and borrowing money from friends. And then think of the moment Falcon 1 reached orbit. That moment is available to you. Not the same moment, your orbit, your version of success. But it is available. It is out there. And the only way to reach it is to do what Elon Musk has done his entire life. Keep going. Just keep going. No matter what. Thank you for listening to this story. If it moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who is struggling. Someone who is afraid to dream big. Someone who has failed and thinks it is over. Tell them it is not over. Tell them the best stories always have the hardest chapters, and the hardest chapters are never the last ones. This is English Story Orbit. We will see you in the next story. Moral of the story: no dream is too big, and no failure is final. The difference between an ordinary life and an extraordinary one is not talent or luck. It is the decision to keep going when everything tells you to stop. Dream boldly, work relentlessly, fail forward, and never, ever let the world make you smaller than you were born to be.